to the PHNX Mercury Show. I'm Espo. He's Hayden. Glad to be here with you. And before we get into talking about the week that was, Hayden, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment off the top and talk a little bit about the Brittney Griner situation that came up over the weekend. A conservative YouTuber slash internet person, Alex Stein, confronted BG and the Mercury in the Dallas airport, just basically harassing her in particular. First off, I could go on some rant. I could get really angry. I could do those things. But I feel like if I go down that route, I'm not much better than what he was doing. If I just shout things into the void in his direction. But first off, he's being called a provocateur around it. When did provocateur become a synonym for asshole? Right? This person basically invades Brittney Griner's space, yells all these just cruel, ridiculous things at her about her and Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Putin's wife, and about just all these things involving her, her being detained. And I don't understand anymore why we have this going on. Like, why can't people just treat other people with humanely? I do not understand why this guy, I take that back. He does it because people react to it. He does it because it leads to 500,000 YouTube subscribers for him. He does it because right now, hate and obnoxiousness pays. And I think that is a sad state of where we are. And this isn't about everybody wanted to turn to the travel. That was the first instinct. But to me, I turn to they shouldn't have to worry about this in an airport. It shouldn't matter whether they're traveling commercial, whether they're walking into their hotel, whether the team's going to get dinner in a city. This is just not humane, not the way we should treat other people.
Exactly. There's a phrase my parents taught me, and it's quite simple. It's better to close your mouth than to have people think you're stupid than to open it and prove them right. And I don't think I need to say much more on the topic. I think you've summed it up quite nicely, and in a very positive way that doesn't just, because I'll be honest, at first I thought about the travel and I was like, I'm a little bit skeptical because they said they would, she would be traveling charter and all this stuff. But when you go down to it, it's kind of, this is a human problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it goes back to the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. I don't think this guy would like to have, things shouted at him and, being asked very, provocative things and very questionable things.
I think it's beyond it, provocative. I mean, it's downright just rude, beyond rude. It's just, it's ridiculous and not based in fact, like not even factual, not based in logic, not based in anything like that. And, this will be the meanest I get with it. He chose to open his mouth, and he's very lucky nobody shut it for him while they were out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we can leave it at that. That was one off-the-court thing this week that happened with the Mercury that I felt deserved to be addressed. But let's turn to basketball. That's why we're here. Believe me, we're not here to solve the world's problems. We're here to solve the Mercury's basketball problems. And they had a few in Dallas last week. They had those back-to-back, but not really back-to-back games in Dallas, and they lost both. Yeah. I mean, had opportunities to win both games. They just did not play up to the level we expect from them.
Yeah. It really stunk because your prediction and my prediction were both wrong. I know you said 3-0, I said 2-1, and it was 1-2, and I was like, "This is really gonna stink when I walk in on Monday." Like, dang. But yeah, I don't think they should have tuned in to watch my, DIY on how to rebound and box out because, like, look, I've got numbers here. Wednesday was awful.
Yes.
50-26. How do you let a team drop 50 rebounds? I don't care what level you're at. You be NBA, WNBA, EuroLeague, like that's just unacceptable, man.
Yeah, I mean it's not doing the little things, and
Mhm.
it's expecting a lot of Griner on the glass. I think they've become very willing to kind of just expect her to do most of the work, and that's just not the way the NBA or the WNBA works, and basketball in general works. You cannot expect one or two people to clean the glass for you.
Exactly. I mean, and with that being said, I mean, it's the philosophy's been very simple. Give BG the ball, let her go to work. But like you said, I mean, when it's 4 against 1, when every member of the Dallas Wings is crashing the glass and it's just Brittney Griner, I don't care who you are, there's always strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And Nygaard like head coach Vanessa Nygaard talked about that a lot, and she really stressed just what has to be different, especially in the rebounding area. Check it out.
I mean, I think it's kind of a better effort needs to be put into that. I thought we rebounded well to start the game, rebounded well through the first half, and they just came out in the second half and they got 11-0 boards. And I thought that was really the difference. Pushed up their possessions, pushed up their shot attempts, and when the other team's getting that many more shot attempts, then it's really hard to win the game.
Especially she brings up effort. When it's 15-4 on the offensive boards, that to me screams effort because when you're the defensive team, you have the better positioning for the rebounding. You should be able to get that. And on the other end, if you're not going to outwork them, you're not going to get the offensive rebounds. I think it was very much an attention to details thing.
Exactly. If I had $1 for every time I saw in that Wednesday game that a loose ball went right by a Phoenix player, if it was a potential defensive rebound or just not hustling, I would have made myself a good amount of money that game. But, nonetheless, though, I've said it once on the show and I'll say it plenty more times. I love to give credit where credit is due. Satu Sabally has had an amazing season. I mean, there's even been things trending on Twitter where it's Satu season because she's finally healthy and showing how great of a player she is. And we can't forget Arike as well. Just two absolute master classes throughout this 2 games.
You're not going to try the last name?
Ogumbawale. There we
go.
There we go. I kid you not. Okay, I had my friends and even my parents quiz me on the last name because I was able to speak to her one time and I was like, please don't butcher this. Please don't butcher this. And we got it. But
well, I'm glad. Usually when you start thinking that, you get in your head, you say it wrong. So I was impressed by Sabally. I hadn't really seen a lot of her game, admittedly, but her toughness too. They beat her up in the fourth quarter of that game in particular, and she just kept going. I mean, the Mercury played a very physical game, and she just kept going. She was impressive in both games, but really took care of business on Wednesday night.
Yeah, there was one. So Brianna Turner fouled her, and which they upgraded it to a flagrant 1, which I thought was kind of bogus because it was a clean play on the basketball. It's just an awkward landing between the two because the stanchion was right there. But no, there were a couple. I think she drove on Sophie Cunningham and she whacked her, in the nose, got a blade nose. Oh, she was fired up. I thought she was about to fight somebody. I was like, you gotta hold her back. But
Sophie would be interesting in a fight for sure.
I mean, gosh, they even said it. I saw the game live where she almost went toe to toe with Maisha Hines-Allen, and if you've seen Maisha Hines-Allen in person, woof, she's built. She's built. I mean, she's about 6'2", like a true 4 or 5, and Cunningham's going toe to toe, but. Nonetheless, I don't want to leave out the rebounding struggles. And Shug Sutton even talked about how those struggles have persisted, even dating back to the season opener.
I think we just have to buy into it. That's been a problem the whole season since we've been playing, is we haven't been rebounding well, and we haven't been locking into stopping those things. Dallas is a really good rebounding team, and I think we have to take account to that and, lock into that. And I think we didn't do well with that tonight with Satu. But all we can do is go back to the drawing board, continue to get better as a team, and stick together.
It speaks a lot when she talks about effort and putting in that. I mean, Shug was out of basketball. She was playing in a semi-pro league in St. Louis before she came here. She knows the effort and what it takes to do the little things. Otherwise, she wouldn't have found her way to the Mercury roster. So you got to wonder, does that resonate with her teammates just because they know her?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, you have DT and BG, who are 2 number 1 overall picks, and you have a bunch of players. I mean, Sophie, Breezy, now Caddy Sissoko, a bunch of players that have been drafted by the organization, and she comes in as being undrafted, and I see her working her tail off every single game, and it's it's interesting because they had her on Arike throughout much of Wednesday's and Friday's game, which I'm all for Shug Sutton, but I'm like, why are you doing that?
It's quite the tough assignment.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you expect her to give full defensive effort and then go because Mariah Jefferson was out, and you expect her to create for others, create her own shot. Like, she gave a lot of effort. I felt she just got gassed. And we'll talk about Sunday's game, but even in Sunday's game, dude, she played 38 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's only 2 minutes of rest.
And it speaks a lot to, obviously some of the injuries that have eaten into the roster and necessitated it. But I think it also speaks to how much trust Coach Nygaard has in her, even though she was undrafted and took the path less traveled, let's say, to the WNBA. But I also know that effort's going to be key moving forward as well with this team.
Amen. I mean, and funny enough, Vanessa Nygaard and Shug Sutton both answered about this topic. We'll play it with Nygaard first, but it was a very simple explanation about with what she believes good effort is.
Each player as a professional, we want to win the game. And I think that effort comes from a commitment to helping the team. And right now what the team needs is people to rebound. And right now we just don't have that. And, Breezy came off the bench, was our leading rebounder with 8. And, our second rebounder was Michaela. So I guess that's good for those 2, but we need a lot more from everyone else.
I mean, you see that. I mean, 8 rebounds for Breezy and Michaela, and like, where's everybody else? Why do you think there's a lack of effort?
I don't know. I found it interesting that Coach Nygaard basically said we don't have that. I mean, I don't know if she's saying we don't have those people on the roster that are true rebounders, and that means it's a fundamentally flawed roster, which in that case, expecting it to get better, no matter how much effort or whatever, doesn't seem to be likely. Now, I'm guessing that's not what she meant. I just found that to be interesting in that clip. But really, it comes down to basics. It comes down to when the shot goes up, putting your backside in somebody and boxing them out. I was not a very good basketball player, but that was the one thing I took pride in. And even as lacking athleticism like I was, it's something you can do because it really is just court awareness, finding that person, putting the body in them. And I think it just comes down to simplifying it back to that. Just find somebody and make sure they don't get to the hoop. Even if you're blocking that person so BG or somebody else can grab the board, it's about that boxing out.
Exactly that. I mean, and it would be one thing if they're pulling shots from half court or they're or it's a shot to end the quarter, to end the half, hell, even to end the game, but it's not. These are just, open 3-pointers, mid-range jumpers, and it's like I've seen so many times where someone will take a shot and they'll immediately head back on defense.
Yeah, instead of
Yeah,
following your shot. Yeah.
exactly, because there are so many opportunities, and I saw this with Dallas. There are so many opportunities where, for example, Satu Sabli, she would miss her shot and just go and get it and get 2 quick points. And it's not a fundamental thing. It's definitely an effort. It's just like, okay, we have to actually focus on this, because when they won against Minnesota, they shot the ball well. They rebounded okay, but even if they were to rebound at league average, right? Like,
but that's the thing.
Yeah,
just average.
just average. That's all you need.
Yeah, don't get beat by 26 on the boards. I mean, that just keep it close. And at part of it is on players, but at some point it's also the coaching staff has to get the most effort out of this team, and sometimes that is simply going back to basics in practice and making it very clear it's a point of contention that it has to change. So we'll see. I mean, I was hoping this was the breakthrough week, and we did not see that.
Yeah, I mean, and it really stinks for players like Shook Sutton, like you said, and even she talked about what good effort is, and she also talked about rebounding, but also talked about a couple other things that I'd love to get your opinion on.
I think everybody, for one, I think as a team, we just have to, communicate with each other, be on one page. I think right now we're just, sometimes all over the place, and I know that's what it looks like out there. But I think it's just everyone just giving 100% effort, whether that's rebounding, whether that's defending your player, helping each other out, communicating, and just all the things that go into buying into the defensive end and giving all of our effort, because, if we get stops, we get rebounds, and we get out in transition, that's our best bet right now. So I think if we put those things together, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. I don't know. There's a lot in that to unpack, because she's talking about it's a little all over the place. We're getting to the point where the excuse of, well, we haven't played that much together starts to go out the window, because you had your preseason, you've had your regular season games now, and at some point it's got to click, right? And we're not seeing that. We're not seeing this team gel. And I know everybody's like, well, BG's got to work her way back in. BG's been fine. But
Yeah,
that hasn't
she's
been
the best player by a long shot.
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but is this roster built too much around relying on DT? And is she just not capable of that anymore to be the one to carry them as the number 2 option? I hate to say, but we saw this, very much with Chris Paul as well. Eventually, Father Time catches up. There's a reason that the saying "Father Time's undefeated" holds true in most cases, and that's not a knock on Diana Taurasi. It's a reality of playing 20 plus years, and playing overseas and playing for the national team. Like, this isn't like the NBA side of it where there's an off season. She played basketball year round for most of those 20 years. I wonder if that's part of this, because they look to her for a lot like she has over the last few years and throughout her career. But are we getting to the point where she can't carry that?
I don't know. And Jacob, if you can you pull up Gilbert's comment? Because I want to talk about this a little bit. Because I miss Skylar too, but this is why I think she's so important. And I'll be honest, Espo, I did not plan to talk about this at all, but here we are. With a player like Skylar, she definitely took the load off of DT and just allowed her to score and do what Diana's going to do. And not to say you don't have that in Mariah Jefferson or Shook Sutton, but Skylar,
It's not Skylar.
but Skylar, I mean, was all W first team last season, and in my opinion, played one of the best seasons I've ever seen. She played some of the best basketball I've ever watched. Period. I know I'm on the younger side, but still, like I've seen a lot of basketball. What she did every single night was amazing, and she was the reason we were in the playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and deny that she was the sole reason. And when you look at what she can do, and then obviously what BG can do, and I hope it's not one of those where we saw in the NFL, like with Tom Brady, where, you know, he did not age gracefully. I hope that at some point DT would just be able to sort of go off, you know, sort of gracefully make her exit from the WNBA, instead of it being like, okay, we're going to rely so much on her to carry us in her, 19th season, correct? I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was drafted. Yeah.
In her 19th season. And it's like, at some point you need others to step up, but I don't know if others are getting that opportunity.
Well, I mean, I think you're right though. You build a roster, and Skylar's part of that. And last year, she was the number one player. DT was second to her. Well, this year BG's back. You miss Skylar. You're still in that same boat. Where if Skylar's there, DT again shifts into that third. At sometimes maybe even a fourth option with Sophie, but can become that great spot up shooter from deep, and doesn't have to worry about as much. That's the weird thing with this roster is, does Skylar come back at all this year? How does she play? I mean, it's tough to expect her to come in and be that person as well. So how do you stem the tide? What do you do to figure it out? And we've seen improvements. I mean, we can talk about this a little. Last show we talked about they were worst in the league, over 20 turnovers a game, and then you see, Wednesday 15, 16 on Friday, 10 on Sunday. They've cleaned that portion of it up, right? But again, the rebounding is another aspect. It feels like there's so many things that they have to clean up, but at least they stopped the turnovers from being as big of a problem.
Exactly. And it's just focus on the most basic things. Don't make a simple thing hard. If you can be an average rebounding team, be an average rebounding team. If you can be an average playmaking team, be an average playmaking team. There's a lot. People talk a lot about mediocrity, and I mean, mediocrity can still win you basketball games, especially when you're trying to figure stuff out. Because look at the Las Vegas Aces last year. There's a lot of questions about Becky Hammond coming from the NBA. What coaching style is she going to implement? And not to say it was super rocky to start, but a lot of it was kind of murky waters. And they ended up winning the 2022 championship and looked like the best team and were the best team by a long shot. So just be content with being average, I would say, until you figure some things out.
Yeah, well, right now they need to strive to hit that point in some ways. But what I was encouraged about, and we'll just transition into Sunday's game if that's all right with you. I was I was pleased with the fact that down the stretch they did turn to BG, and they got it down to her, and they let her do her thing. She had that beautiful kind of turnaround hook over two players late in that game that kind of helped solidify that win. But that felt like in the two Dallas games and some of the previous games, they went away from it too much, especially in the fourth. You need a bucket. I'm blanking on, was it the LA game they went to overtime?
Yes.
They didn't go to BG for the final shot. They chucked a three when they were tied. Like, these are things that was a progression. I was like, okay, that's growth. They went that way.
Yeah, exactly. And what was funny was that they knew exactly what they were getting into with this game. I mean, Indiana, Aaliyah Boston, consensus number 1 overall pick, NaLyssa Smith, who, in my opinion, obviously, Ryan Howard was more than deserving of Rookie of the Year, but NaLyssa made a very strong case for it. And Breezy even talked about, after Friday's loss, just the impact that these two have and just what they, what they were looking to expect.
Yeah, I mean, life's going to throw a lot of things, at us as a group and her individually. And, it's how you react to things that make you who you are. So, we rallied around her and, just all we can do is really support her. And
This was about.
That's all right.
So that was actually DT talking about rallying around BG and using that as a galvanizing force going into Sunday's game. And I think that's interesting because sometimes teams need, obviously not a moment specifically like that, but a moment in general that can galvanize them, bring them together, and fix some of those things that can look weird on a court, disjointed. Maybe this was an inflection point for this team where they look at it and they go, all right, this made us come together a little bit more. It made us focus in where maybe we weren't before.
Oh, for sure. And look, I love Aaliyah Boston. I think she's great. She'll be one of the best players in the league. Give it 2 or 3 years. She has that type of potential and work ethic. But I'm going to say, though, BG had a master class down in Indiana. I saw a couple of those plays where it was, going baseline on a reverse layup. I so wish I would have included this, but there was a play where she was backing her down and just a simple drop step, and Aaliyah was nowhere to be found. And so it's funny because I've watched bits and pieces of that game, and I was like, is BG, playing with? I know she always plays with a chip on her shoulder, but like, was there any kind of motivation? Obviously, Dallas and the unfortunate incident that happened, but like, was she really playing, that angrily? If that makes any sense.
Well, I think we talked about this in our first episode together, that basketball is kind of that safe place for her. It's pretty clear. I mean, one of the first things she did when she got back home on the Air Force Base there was pick up a basketball. So I wonder if it was more she could go out there, tune out the noise, and just do what she loved and just get that energy out. Because you saw, if you've watched the video of what occurred, she stays very stoic. She does not react. She does not engage. But you gotta imagine that causes some kind of feeling, energy, and I think she very much channeled that into Sunday's game.
Yeah, and I think a main reason for it is because of how players are still professionals. They deal with a lot of noise on social media and even in person. And Vanessa Nygaard specifically talked about how these players are professionals and almost how they just weren't really fazed by it.
Yeah, I mean, they're pros. They're pros, and so it's their job. And so, just like Dee said, whatever comes at you in life, you still got to go to your job and do your job. And so we keep plugging forward, and we had a game today, so we played, and we did a great job, and we come in with the W.
I agree with her in part.
Me too.
I mean, yes, you have to go out and do your job, but that should not be part of a professional athlete's life. It even heckled in general in public, even if it's about specifically basketball, like it seems like we've let that be a little too okay. Like, I get in the arena, heckle like crap out of an opponent. That's fine. That's part of it. But when they step off the court and they're outside that, I don't feel like it is part of their job. I don't feel like it is something they should have to deal with, even on just a basketball level.
Yeah, there's sometimes it's part of the sport. Like you said, if you're in an arena and it's a playoff game and you're at the free throw line, like, in my opinion, heckle all you want, because you're at the game, you paid to be there, and in some cases, if you're a fan of the opposing team, you want your team to win. You're gonna do what you can to gain any kind of an advantage. But we all forget, and I'm especially thankful, and she's not a women's basketball player, but she is a women's athlete, and Simone Biles, and being like, I'm done. Like, I'm walking away from this because it's too much, and it brought an issue. And it's not just in women's sports; it's all sports, across the globe. We're all people at the end of the day. It's like I said earlier in the show. It just goes back to the golden rule. It's like, would you want to be heckled like that?
Yeah.
And my answer for a lot of people, if they were to ask themselves, that would probably be no. I know for sure I wouldn't want to be heckled in public if I was just minding my business, perusing through the airport, going on to the next city. Like, nobody wants that.
I think we've become too comfortable with the thought of athletes as commodities rather than people, and so that makes it a lot easier to say some of these things that we've seen said to athletes, and it's a shame. And us talking about it won't necessarily change that, but I just think people need to take that extra beat. And obviously that's not going to stop the kind of person that heckled BG, but overall I think we all need to take pause and think about that aspect of all this.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that just continues to amaze me about this team is just the focus. That something like this would frazzle a lot of people, and honestly, I'm sure it has. But the way that they came in, and I won't lie, after that third quarter, I'm like, oh, great, here's another loss.
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah, like if you've seen that GTA meme where it's like, here we go again. That's what I thought it was gonna be. But I mean, a 26-point fourth quarter, and that's where the experience comes in, and you've got players that know what it's like, and I think it's just a huge weight off the shoulders. You go back home, for Tuesday's game, which is, if you're watching this right now, that's tomorrow against Seattle, who
brutal schedule, by the way.
Yes. Against Seattle, who Jewel Lloyd is coming back, and I honestly can't wait to see her play selfishly, because she's probably going to drop 30, leading the league in scoring. I could go on and on, but I don't want to say an easy win, but a very winnable game. And then you have the real challenge. You go to Washington, you go to DC, you play the Mystics, and then you play the Liberty, for the first time this season. And I think this, in my opinion, I said last week that this stretch would be the make or break. I think this is the make or break. I think if you take one game, if you win at either Washington or in New York, cool. I think that shows that speaks.
Well, as long as you take care of business against Seattle.
Exactly. Yeah. If they don't take care of business, then we might have to purchase our tickets for the 2024 WNBA draft lottery.
Yeah. I will say this for people that are wanting to watch Mercury games. If you can't find Arizona Family Sports, because I know some of the providers are still getting it, PhoenixMercury.com.
That's right.
Stream it for free. I've done that multiple times.
I have too.
And I'm very impressed with it. Again, completely free, at least this season. I don't know about the future, but easy to use. I recommend it if you want to catch any of the Mercury games. I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, any final thoughts you want to talk about?
One more fun fact about that about the live stream. So I compared it with that in cable, and the live stream is actually like almost game speed.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And so if anybody's super interested in that and you don't want your phone beating you to the punch, definitely use that live stream. It's good. I need to find out what they use.
I'm blanking on the company name, starts with a K, but really great streaming there and a good option for you. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the PHNX Mercury podcast. We will be back here next Monday taking a look at the week that was. Hopefully, we've got a few Mercury wins under our belt by then. He is Hayden. I'm Espo, and we'll talk to you next time. Ahoy, ahoy.